I think I'm recording. Okay. Well, hi, it's me. I'm going to do my Fire Pro Make a Wrestler guide now. I'm going to be referring to a script a couple of times, so if you hear my speech get real stilted, that's what's happening. For example, the instruction manual for this game is really good, this is not going to be like a how-to guide. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to teach like three things. First, I'm going to explain some things Spike doesn't. That's me not reading on my own script right. Second, I want to explain why you would make certain choices when you're making a wrestler. And the main goal is that I want to explain the process of not just making one wrestler, but making an ecosystem, right? Like how to approach making multiple wrestlers that play off each other. And in that process, hopefully finding your own style and playing into it and playing against it. So I made a pretty generic guy as my example. He's the example, Rain McLeod. He's a middle 90s American mid card face. He wins squash matches with a big finisher. He's also got a submission that he was using before he got his big crazy pile driver finish. But otherwise, pretty basic. So let's start. I'm going to go over the name and profile thing real quick. None of this statistically matters. Like, you can set this to be whatever you want. Um, I will say that the swap thing is useful if you have an extremely long first name and a short last name, because then you can go back and all of a sudden he's McLeod Rain. That's great. And also, this bit in the middle here has. Okay, so I think oh yeah, I remember how I use this. So like, if you have someone who has like a 3-word name, you can like type part of the name the into one of the fields and then finish it in the other one. And if you hit none, that means that it'll be like words. It'll like fill out as one complete word. So like I won't make an example, but you can experiment with this and find it on your own. But the important thing is that the first name, well, actually, no, in the character select, okay, used to be, vestigially, you're going to hear that word a lot, that the first name field would be the thing that shows up in the character select screen, but now they just show the full name, so I don't know why they continue to separate it like this, other than it's just the PS2 game with a big, cool interface. So appearance. There's like two things I want to cover in appearance. Excuse me. The first is how you make Misawa tights. This is a personal vexing thing, so I'm gonna rant for just a second. It's this. It's the square. A lot of people make Misawa tights by making like a side, like the tight C here, which will be like an inward outwards division in tights, right? So they'll make green tights, and then they'll make the tight C, and then they'll just have a white line going. And that's not how you make these fucking tights. You have the tights that are the white color. If you were making Misawa, let's just do this real quick, so you can understand what I'm talking about. So, okay, so you have tights A, they're white. You have tight, and then you go find the square, which is that's leggings square. And then you go over here. Hey, look at that shit. Misawa tights. Anyways, the actual statistically important thing inside here is the size. Not all this stuff is like new and variable, and it's not gonna affect statistically. Size extremely does. You get a damage modifier depending on the size differential of the wrestlers. So a giant will get like a severe damage increase over small wrestlers. And like I don't think it detracts damage. I don't think small wrestlers do less damage like inherently, but they sure take a lot more just by the nature of being outsized. So if you're making like power wrestlers, use large and giant really like that's a good bet for like covering the distance, but also you should at some point get to a point where you can make that gap stylistically without needing to rely on making the wrestlers large or giant. Like if you need to make I don't know who a modern power small guy is. Let's say Tony Nese, I guess. He's muscular. I think that's his gimmick. If he would be like small size, but he's like super jacked. So you would have to use your intuition with the statistics to make up the difference for him being a power guy. We'll get to that. Okay, that's everything in appearance. Let's go to skill. So there's a lot of stuff to cover here. I'm gonna have to refer to my script now because I have all sorts of shit that I wrote down for this. Okay, so let's start with the wrestler rank and charisma thing. Charisma affects crowd reaction. So, like, if a wrestler with S charisma wrestles a wrestler with E charisma, right? If the wrestler with E charisma starts making a comeback, there'll be like a super underdog thing. But if the wrestler with S charisma just dominates the whole match, the crowd will be quiet. Except they'll go up for the big moves, and that'll be it. So, like, charisma can either create a crowd reaction if they're equally matched or if they're extremely unequally matched. But if it's like your best bet for getting a good crowd reaction is to have the charisma roughly the same. Rank, again, kind of vestigial at the moment. What rank was for was there was this mode called Matchmaker on the PlayStation 2 game, and rank would dictate how much money it would cost to book a wrestler. So now there's a chance because the Fire Promoter DLC is coming back out that the rank will play into it, but it's not out as the time I'm recording this, so I can't say for sure that they'll do that. Maybe it'll just be permanently vestigial. So fight styles. Let's talk about that. The guide is really good on covering a lot of this stuff, but the main thing that a fight style does is it determines your set of affinities, like the wrestler's set of affinities, right? So like affinity is basically how tired a move makes you to do it. So if you're a luchador, you can't do like a lot of choke slams. That's not like your thing. Your power is set to E. So if you go for a choke slam, you'll get tired because you're using more of your body weight, and stylistically, also hypothetically, but that's basically what the affinity means, is how tired your own moves make you. Vice versa, Andre the Giant's not doing a lot of cannonballs. So, and boxers apparently are incapable of jumping. So, the other thing that, oh wait, no, I skipped a part of my script here. They're not, the affinities aren't listed in one place in the game, but there is an FAQ for the Game Boy Advance version that goes down the list as to what fight style gives what affinities and what moves. It's still accurate. It, of course, because it's the Game Boy game, it leaves out the bottom two categories, which is like the MMA overall and the entertainment. Those weren't in the place in the Game Boy versions. So like you'll have to intuit which styles are good for that stuff, but we'll talk about. I should have covered that in the name thing. We'll get back to the entertainment style in just a second. Okay, so what else? The other thing that fight style can dictate is your jump distance. So if you're an orthodox guy, you'll have regular jump distance. If you're a power guy, you'll have short jump distance. If you're a luchador or panther, which again we're about to cover, you'll have like super long distance jumps. Return skill is just your style of reversals. That's all it is. It's not gonna determine like anything other than that. It's not useful. But like try to line it up with your characters. Like Andre the Giant is not doing a bunch of roll-ups, so we wouldn't use Technician. Andre the Giant actually has a style all for himself, which we'll get to right now. So an important thing to note here is that not everyone needs unique styles, right? So, like, a lot of wrestlers in this game made by Spike back in the day, or just plain orthodox, like, for their style. It's very rare that a wrestler justifies having his own style. So, use that sparingly. Default to orthodox if you're not sure. And just, like, fuss with return skill. Be very, very, very sure that this wrestler needs to be this style. Because, like, you don't want to overuse that stuff, right? There's a couple styles they don't explain in the manual. So I'm going to explain what they mean by them. Or in one case, they do a really bad job of explaining what it means. So the first one I'm going to talk about is heel. Heel specifically means Abdullah the Butcher and the Sheik and that kind of wrestler, where it's just like they're trying to murder you and the venue for that is the wrestling ring. So you're not, if you give a wrestler heel style, but like they're supposed to be a super athletic guy, it's not gonna work. They'll get tired by their own moves a lot of the time because like the heel affinity set is super limited. Uh, so unfortunately, it's the only way to get your wrestler to get booed. But if you look at it in a different light, it is a Japanese wrestling simulator, and heels in Japanese wrestling are not treated the same. They're just kind of accepted, kind of across the board. Um, Mysterious. Mysterious is framed extremely badly, but basically what it means is the Great Muta. Um, like it's that set of like I've got a bunch of athletic spots. My finishers are either I do a moonsault or I spit poison mist into your eyeballs. So if you're going for that kind of wrestler, Mysterious will work. But again, remember um, default to Orthodox. A lot of the time, it's safer. Not safer is the wrong term. Just maybe that's just a personal taste for thing. Like I mean, you can make the styles whatever you want, but if we'll get into that. Um, Giant style. Giant style is specifically for Andre the Giant and like Giant Baba and like the old style of Giant wrestler where their whole gimmick is I'm huge, you can't move me. Big Show is not a giant style. When they were making Big Show in this game in like 2001 or so, Big Show was a power style wrestler, not a giant style. So that should give you a pretty clear guideline as to what counts for giant style. Panther is specifically for Tiger Mask. It's just got a ridiculous set of positive affinities. So because it's basically like a superhero set, right? Because like it's like I never get tired. I kick like a truck. I was like everything's fine. I'm like as long as you don't expect me to like chokeslam people, Tiger Mask is gonna be a okay. Excuse me. And the last one is Vicious. Do they call it Vicious in this one, or is it? Oh, that's the wrong one. Is it still Vicious, or is it? There's a magician in a couple of them. Okay, Vicious. Vicious is for Antonio Inoki specifically, which is like a hard brawling gotchism kind of wrestler, from like the 60s and 70s. So a lot of really high affinities, kind of unfair. Um, so yeah, keep that in mind. Vicious is specifically for that kind of wrestler. I didn't write anything in the guide I have for critical stuff. Um, so the thing I'm going to say about criticals is that not everything criticals, even if you set it to. So, like, a good example of this is the sharpshooter. The sharpshooter will never critical, whether you have it on finisher or submission. Finisher does not guarantee that whatever you set to finisher will occasionally knock them out. That's not what that means. Finisher is just like the default. Like, if your wrestler does not have, like, one of these specific kinds of technical styles, then you just default to finisher. It's free. You don't have to raise your point level. But a lot of moves aren't obvious critical types. Like the suplex one specifically, there's a lot of really weird specific stuff that does suplex critical. Usually you want to default to stuff closer to like the original German suplex, right? Which is like kind of a low bridging belly to back or something, or the straight up belly to back suplexes. Those all suplex critical. I think the captured does as well, and the full shoot wrestling suplexes basically. Just not like pro wrestling bridging pin style suplexes. Submission, I find to be more shoot wrestling oriented, like cross arm bars and knee bars and stuff. Power is actually the only one that like makes the most sense. Like it's choke slams, it's power bombs, it's giant face whipping death slams of all kinds. Technical is roll ups, which also totally checks out. An important thing about technical roll ups is technical roll ups will not, if they're in the ropes, it won't automatically end the match. What technical critical does is it completely saps spirit immediately. We'll get into why spirit matters in just a second. But if there's a roll up and they stand up, they can still technically compete in the match. So keep that in mind. Also, it can affect dragon screws. You can pop someone's leg out with technical Dragon Screw Critical. I've never seen it, but the statistics say it's possible. Statistics. The move data set says it's possible. So I'll take their word for it. I imagine it works better with like the high speed Dragon Screw than the regular. I wonder if it works on the ground one. Oh, okay. All right. So recovery is your general health pool, and the speed that it recovers over time. So like your general health pool. Oh, okay. So there's 3 factors of health, and recovery, breathing, and spirit cover all of them. So recovery is just the generic health. Every time you get hit with something, it drains your recovery. Like regardless of anything else. And the actual recovery stat kind of takes more effect with like tag matches. Like when you're on the apron, your recovery will slowly recover, but and your rate here will dictate that. And for breathing, breathing is like think of it like Dark Souls, right? You have your own stamina bar for like how many times you can swing. That's what breathing does in this game. Like the amount of times that you can do a thing without having to take a break and recover. There are ways to affect other wrestlers' breathing. They're mostly, there's a word for this. They make a lot of sense. They're intuitive. So like chokeholds, throat slaps, like throat chops, all that stuff. Anything that like affects the throat in any way will lower their breathing inherently. Just a thing to keep in mind if you want to make a weird styled wrestler that way. Spirit is kind of tricky to describe. It's like a secondary health bank, but it's only drained by specific stuff. The main thing it's drained by is pinfalls, submissions, and cheating. So in order to pin someone in this game, you have to drain not only their recovery, but their spirit. So that's where the incentive for going for pinfalls early comes from, because if you don't, and this could just be a stylistic choice if you choose to do this, if you don't go for pinfalls early and just go for pinfalls late, you're going to have like a ton of near falls, because their spirit's going to, like their recovery is going to be low, so they can't kick out immediately, but their spirit's going to be high, so they won't get pinned yet. So if that's a desired result, that's how you would accomplish that. Spirit is also the thing that is charged by Ukemi, which we're going to get into in another video. Let me make sure I'm still recording real quick. I am. All right, tight. Endurance for body parts. So the damage that you take from receiving. Let me start that sentence again. The amount of recovery that is drained by moves is determined by your body part endurance. So like if you have weak legs, moves that will affect your legs will inherently do more recovery damage, or will do more damage than they would if your legs were normal. So it's basically you make a weak spot for yourself. Now I want to talk about up and down speed. Ascent style, that's the one I want. Ascent style this is not like really clearly explained. So run is specifically for lion salts and the corner to run moves, right? So what you want to, if you are going to have this move, you have to turn on run. If you're going to have those moves, you have to turn on run. Because otherwise they'll go for it and they'll bonk into the turnbuckle and they'll turn around and go, well, that was weird, and continue wrestling the match, and you'll either laugh or be frustrated that you've been taken out of the match. But not everyone needs this, so just keep that in mind. There's a lot of the top rope stuff, you could just say, don't do that. And so that's something to keep in mind. Up and down speed. The rest of this is self-explanatory. Parameters. Okay. How do I want to explain parameters? Oh yeah, my photo example. So all of this is pretty self-explanatory, I find. The stuff that's like kind of touch and go is that impact is specifically for large back bumps and large like head drops and stuff. So like your impact stat is for like if you get like power bombed, your impact defense will determine that. Or if you get choke slammed, your impact defense will determine that. As for why you would... okay, I think this is the time where I should start referring to other examples. So Fire Pro has been a game that's been made for like straight up decades, right? So I wonder if YouTube's just gonna let me upload a 30-minute video just right at the start. I'll have to find a different site if that. Regardless, um, YouTube, no, Spike and Human Entertainment have been making Fire Pro games for a long time. So in those games, they have all sorts of real wrestlers that they made, and so they kind of have a kick-ass guide on how to make Fire Pro wrestlers within Fire Pro. So I'm gonna cite three very different examples to give you a sense of how and when you should be using both skills and parameters. And we're gonna start with everybody's favorite, Curryman. So let's see. What do I want to point out about Curryman? So Curryman has the Luchador fight and return style. Special skills. I totally missed special skills. I'll get to that in a second. He has the luchador style because he's a junior heavyweight guy. So he would, in America, he would more accurately be a junior, but this is 2001 era stuff with Daniel, so he's in Michinoku Pro. Michinoku Pro is all luchadors. It checks out. So his breathing, because he is a luchador, because he needs to be able to do all this like crazy stuff and needs to run the ropes all the time, his breathing is really high. But because he's like kind of a mid card guy who hasn't been in like a lot of blood feuds, all of his damage when bleeding is pretty low, except Spirit. Spirit when bleeding. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, don't make him bleed, I guess. There must be some bloodbath that justifies that ranking. He's also got the run ascent style because he has like the run up and back elbow thing. Oh no, I think they would have done that for the double jump moonsault, I guess. So if you look at his actual parameters, all his parameters are super low. It's because like he's this guy who's good at wrestling in this one place. He's not supposed to be like the world beater, like crazy dude. He's just Curryman. So his offensive stats, like the stuff that his finisher is powered by, which is like agility, which is his primary. I think agility is the primary stat for the spicy drop, and for also most of his other near falls. That's 7. Whereas for like his arm power is 3. That's his lariats. His kicks is 2. His punches is 3. He's not a brawler. He's a luchador. He's trying to do arm drags and spots and stuff. And his defensive parameters are the same way. He's really good about taking flying moves, not so great about being thrown on the back of his head. It was called body in old games. I'm sorry for the confusion there. So yeah, Curryman, 133 points out of a total of 380. Reasonable. He's like an obscure guy. Let's go to a less obscure guy. Also worth noting that one of the things that's driving up his score the most is that his up and down style is listed as fast. That takes a lot of points. So does movement speed medium fast does it, but up and down fast does take a good amount of points. I think it's like 12 or something. Anyways, let's go from a mid card guy to an upper card guy. Let's go to Sting. So Sting, again, Sting has the orthodoxy thing, right? Because like Sting's style is not like defined enough to be an orthodox guy. So he's pretty much a basic American wrestling babyface. He's good when he's bleeding. He's like struggling to stay in the match. When he's like really hard to beat because all of his endurances are super high. So you have to like really be a top level wrestler to wear him down. Like he's not gonna get worn down by like Curryman, for instance, because all of his body parts are like super high. Offensively, his stats kind of have a bigger bump in general. Not a huge jump, but a bigger one. So like agility, which is where he gets like the stinger splash and the death drop, I guess. Those are all high because he needs those stats high for that. Same with power; those both feed into his finishes. If his finish is going to be legitimate, they have to have like high attack stats. So that's why he has that. Defensively, like his punch and kick is raised super high because of the American style being so brawler heavy, specifically like the WCW style. So he's been getting his ass kicked for years. He's really good at getting his ass kicked. He's not good against MMA defense, like his MMA overall defense and his joint defense. Joint is like usually, yeah, they still call it joint. Is he's not out there wrestling like shoot wrestlers. He's wrestling people who are doing like figure fours to him and shit. So defensively, he's got a lot of really high stats, which makes him resilient, and that resiliency is what's put him at the top of the card, right? Like he's not a guy that gets beat a lot. He's a guy that he usually wins, and so it takes a really superhuman effort to put him down, like Vader or something. So so all this adds up to 164. The difference between a top level guy and a bottom level guy is like 31 points. Let's go to our last example. Our last example here is Lou Thesz. Lou Thesz is the guy responsible for pro wrestling in North America. He put the I won't go into the history. He is the NWA. He's like the second NWA champion ever, and he held it for something like 6 years, and then held it again later for another two or three. Like, American wrestling does not take off in the way that it does without Lou Thesz's work. Lou Thesz innovated a lot of things. The backdrop suplex is Lou Thesz's. The STF is Lou Thesz's. So, when you look at his recovery stats, they're all super high because he's Lou Thesz. He's beaten everybody forever. He was a champion for 6 fucking years. Can you even imagine such a thing? He's not like he's not a flying guy at all. Like, I think it might have been actually like outlawed by athletic commissions back then. So he's not got any of that stuff. I'll also note orthodox, total orthodoxy for his style and return style. So like if Lou Thesz is orthodox, your guy can be orthodox or gal or whatever. Statistically, because he's an innovator, he gets 10s. He gets 9s and 10s. He made a lot of shit. The power bomb is... You could argue about this, but there's enough evidence to suggest that the power bomb is his invention, as well as the backdrop and the STF. So, he's got very high stats attack-wise, because he is a foundational figure in the pro wrestling style. And defensively, like, you shouldn't be able to beat Lou Thesz. I guess unless you're Stan Hansen. Stan Hansen might have a chance. And he has low entertainment defense because back then he was just busy, like, basically shoot fighting. So, like, his tolerance for shenanigans is probably pretty low. But, like, if someone, like, tries to actually, like, MMA him or fucking cheat against him, as his rough stat shows, he will just, not react to it and demolish it. So, this is Lou Thesz, a foundational figure in the history of pro wrestling worldwide, 244. I hope you're understanding what I'm getting at here, which is that the idea that your wrestlers have 10 points in any category is ridiculous. You could, of course, I'm not the law, but if you're going to have wrestlers that fit in with the entire context of Fire Pro Wrestling, the 10s basically means you invented something. You're a figure that is responsible for an entire generation's, like, portrayal or use of a certain thing. Hayabusa has a 10 for instant power because of agility, I guess it is now. Because he invented, like, the 450 and the Phoenix Splash and all this shit. He was an innovative high flyer. He brought it to other people. Tiger Mask has a 10 in agility, etc., etc., etc. Stan Hansen has a 10 in arm power because, like, he is the Lariat. That's him. Like, so that's the kind of wrestler that you're talking about when you are talking about giving a wrestler a 10. Is someone who the entire world has looked at their style and gone, that's a fucking good idea. And if you can come up for your own justifications as to why you would give someone a 10 or a 9, that's totally fine. I'm just saying, in the context of the history of Fire Pro, Lou Thesz is a 244. I think there's only one wrestler that ever went over 300 made by Fire Pro, and it's Jumbo Tsuruta. And Jumbo Tsuruta is basically Japanese Brock Lesnar from the 60s. So, like, that's the level of athlete that you're dealing with as having tens. Well, I think Jumbo might not even have tens. I think Jumbo just has a shit ton of nines. I don't know. I don't know that specifically. But Jumbo Tsuruta has the highest stats that I'm aware of. I'll say in the New Japan DLC, Kenny Omega and Okada both have something like 286 or something, which I find to be distasteful, but New Japan paid for the DLC, so it's not like I don't understand them going like, they shouldn't lose very often. Fine, whatever. So those are my example wrestlers, and I hope that explains why I have made the choices with statistics that I have. Like, he's a mid card guy. He's not winning a lot of matches, but like if he hits his big crazy finish, he'll be fine. And because he's American style, he gets punched and kicked a lot. Okay, so moveset. A couple specific things I want to cover with the moveset. Right. Before we do that, let's talk about the entertainment stuff real quick. This sucks, and this is like the most Japanese shit ever. So the entertainment moves are mostly put in to be like Danshoku Dino style shenanigans, right? Which is like super gay baiting. So if for whatever reason you feel compelled to use that stuff, if you want to have the moves come out the right way, you have to go to the sex option and you have to select one of the ones with the question marks. Japan. Of course, like if you're doing like the chair illusion or like Poison Sawada Julie's like magic spell thing, that all works fine. Anyways, moveset. There's a couple stuff that there's a couple things I want to cover here. I actually have way more notes on this than I thought I did. Okay, so moveset. AI will occasionally put people in the Tree of Woe in the corner, which is the thing where they're hanging upside down with their feet in the thing. I don't know if people forgot what that's called. The move that your edit will do when someone is hanging in the Tree of Woe is your standing medium. So if you have it as something like the Kisagiri chop, it's going to look like they're chopping them between the thighs over and over. If that's a desired effect, go for it. Just putting that out there, that standing medium is the move they're going to use. Can you do the axe kick? I was thinking about that. It's just a goof. No, the axe kick is not available for standing medium. Oh well. What else? Okay, top rope stuff. It's one of those things that seems obvious, but they never actually directly spell this out. So if you miss top rope stuff, you'll do damage to yourself. You'll do health damage, spirit damage, and limb specific damage. Also, I probably should have covered this while I was talking about the limb strength, but depending on how much wear that your limbs have, it can actually give an effect on the damage. Like, your ability to do a move depends on how good your body parts strengths are. So if you've been getting your arms work the whole match and you go for a lariat, it's not gonna do as much damage, and there's a chance that instead of capitalizing, they'll roll on the ground and hold their arm, or if they do something that needs their neck and they had their neck pile driven like 15 million times or such. So yeah. Missing stuff also does spirit damage. That's important. That's one of the things that can do spirit damage. Let's talk about the front grapple stuff. I kind of have a system for front grapple stuff. You don't have to do this, but if there's a chance that you're going to play your wrestlers, this can be kind of a helpful way to think about this stuff. You use your up arrow to do something that places them with their head towards you. Your left and right to like make it so that it's the opposite direction. So like, and then you're down for making them land face down. This is just a way, like, again, if you're playing as your wrestlers, like having some sort of shorthand that you can use for like, I need to get him face down right here can be really helpful. So try to develop your own, but that's what I use. I at least stick to the like button press down equals face down thing a lot. Like, behold. And also, which speaking of, let's talk about the American Punch Rush. Um, there should be a law that if you're making an American style wrestler, you have to use the American Punch Rush. This is the punch comeback. This is the wrestling comeback move. No one's too good for it. No one. Most wrestlers should have the American Punch Rush. You'll get tired of seeing it, but it's the best option. Like, it's the comeback. It's the fundamental building block of American pro wrestling from the 70s onwards. Is the comeback. This is the move that is the comeback. You're not too good for it. Put it in your character. Unless there's some sort of kickboxer, then go ahead and use some crazy kick combo. Excuse me. Uh another thing I want to touch on is that the affinity for this right now is D. And what I want to say is that you shouldn't let affinity make you hold you back from making the wrestler that you want, right? You shouldn't be looking at your affinity as like, well, I want to give him this, but the affinity says it'll do this. Like, it'll have consequences, but like the character comes first. So don't let affinity chase you away from having your wrestler be exactly the wrestler that you want. Also, that you can I just want to point out you can use small and medium damage moves, and like in big damage you can use small and medium damage moves. Like I have the drop toe hold here. I really recommend this just to like spread out the amount of times you're using big moves for wrestlers. Like, this is kind of the thing I'm talking about with the ecosystem, right? Where like so many wrestlers will have so many moves. Like, there's only so many moves in the game. So, like, there has to be a certain number of moves that you're willing to cannibalize as, like, general spots that everyone does. The DDT is a great example for this. Because, like, the DDT is a move that every wrestler in the world does as of 2018. It's not out of the character for any wrestler to ever do a DDT. It's just part of the style. Um, so, like, the jumping DDT here is that, like, I use a DDT as a finish, so I chose a big quality. I'm going to move off that because of the voice sample. The jumping DDT is because I have this. I could use a DDT as a finish instead of a transitional move. Therefore, I use a big damage DDT. There are also wrestlers that will have justifications for using one of the special types of DDTs, like your Finn Balor's with Bloody Sunday. That's a game that's in the move now, so you can just do that. So be sparing with your use of big moves, because that's how you make an ecosystem, is spacing out who gets what spots. Like, if you can have a wrestler that has like every deadly suplex in the world, but by the time that you think I want to make another suplex character, you'll look at your moveset and go, well, fucking that guy has this one and they have this one and they have this one, and what this shit am I gonna do? And so, like, it's a way to like future proof yourself if you're making your own like ecosystem of wrestlers, right? You have it so you're capable of making new wrestlers of a style that are different. Dr. Death is not Gary Albright. They're both suplex wrestlers, but they're both very different suplex wrestlers. And they accomplish that by their available suplexes. So just be cautious with when you're using what moves. Let's see, what else do I got here in my notes here. The shoot fighting moves. Let's go scroll over there real quick. So I know it doesn't seem like you should prepare for the shoot wrestling stuff if you are primarily making pro wrestlers. This is a personal anecdote. I used to be this way, where I was just like, yeah, I'm just making pro wrestlers. I'm not going to mess with the MMA moves. It's just a pro wrestler. They'll always be there. And then I started making wrestlers that did a various amount of shoot stuff, and then all of a sudden, like, my cowardly heel was doing, like, all sorts of crazy, what was it, the side body knee lift? I think that's one of the default ones, where it's like, oh, you not only caught the front face lock, but now you've transitioned into a side guard and you're kneeing them in the kidney captain roll up. Okay, sure. So, just for your own sense of continuity later on, if you do decide to start messing with MMA people, go ahead and put in the MMA moves. Last thing I want to talk about in the moveset. I mean, like, most of the moveset, it's like pretty self-justified, and like it's got a couple personal tastes of mine. I like to have top rope moves be special. Like, I don't like to use them as just transitional things. Because like it's a really dangerous move. It could end a match. Um, What other examples do I have of this? Here's the small damage thing for big damage thing again. But yeah, the thing I really wanted to specifically point out before we stop talking about the moveset was the corner stuff. The double corner attack and the triple corner attack, I find these to be frustrating. The main reason I find them to be frustrating is that if your referee is set to call tag partners back, it will make them stop in the middle of the run. The referee can halt this move. So like it'll take a while to get them in the corner, and then they'll set up in the corner, and then they'll do the whip, and then they might not make it all the way across the ring before they have to come back, and then the other wrestler who's the legal man will have to run over. But by that time, since the wrestler hasn't been struck, they're not gonna they're not gonna be there, so you're gonna end up watching a swing attack just end up with like one guy running over and going, and never mind, the other dude panicking and then running face first into the turnbuckle. Good for comedy matches, but if you're trying to get this actually accomplished, you're gonna need to make your referees really slow on stopping interference. Which reminds me, I missed something I wanted to talk about. But yeah, the double corner attack and triple corner attack, I never see these work. And part of that is because my refs are really aggressive about tag stuff. But if you want to see this spot a lot, you're going to have to make your own refs. And you're going to have to make them really permissive of tag stuff. Last thing I want to go over, and this is more for playing this game than it is for simming this game. Which is the question of why you would use a strike that doesn't knock down. In front grapple. So this was revealed to me thanks to the Carlzilla mod pack. Shout out Carlzilla. How do I put this? So when certain moves will do like their amount of damage, but they'll also do their amount of recovery frames. So like if you do a certain if you do like a pile driver, it'll take, and their recovery is like halfway down. They'll be on the ground for so many frames, and it'll count down, and then they'll stand up. Standing strikes, your first standing strike that you land, will add on to that countdown timer. So if you want to be a total cheapskate in this game, you're going to want to use a lot of standing strikes, and then you can use knockdown moves then, and you'll have additional control of the match, which you wouldn't before, and it'll keep them from being able to escape the submissions for longer, and it'll keep them damaged for longer, all that stuff. So that's why you would do small damage strikes that don't knock down. Or I think there's a couple medium damage strikes that don't knock down, but I don't remember what they are at the moment. Okay, so that's the moveset. I'm gonna stop this video here because the next video, I left CPU logic completely blank, and we're going to go over that in entirety as I do it, stream of consciousness style. So this is the end of part 1 of my Fire Pro guide. Jesus Christ, it's 45 minutes.